Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second Ajyal Spotlight for the week. My name is Ben Robinson. I'm a producer at the Doha Film Institute, and we hope you've been enjoying this 9th edition of the Ajyal Film Festival so far. I'm delighted to present to you my co-moderator for this session, Fatma Hassan Al-Rumayhi, Chief Executive Officer of the Doha Film Institute and Festival Director of Ajyal.
Thank you, Ben. Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to have you all with us again tonight. Our session is open for the general public. So our vibrant community of writers, directors, actors, and technicians here in Doha are joining us. But we're also joined by some of our jurors at the Ajyal Film Festival. And as everyone know by now, Ajyal Film Festival has a jury of more than 500 young men and women from the age 8 till 25. They watch films during the festival. They have Q&As, talks, and workshops. And at the end of the festival, they choose the winners and we celebrate them together. And now I would like to introduce our special guest. Mr. Michael Douglas is a cinematic renaissance man, a powerhouse producer with a sharp eye for stories both complex and commercially successful. And as an actor, his versatility allows him to play by turns vulnerable, morally ambiguous, or heroic and idealistic characters with equal skill, sometimes all in the same film. Michael Douglas, thank you for joining us here this evening.
Thank you, Fatma. It's a pleasure to be here, Ben. Thank you both very much. I'm looking forward to spending the evening with you.
We're very excited to meet you. And just before we start our conversation tonight, for our audience, a little more about Michael Douglas's stellar career. With over 50 years of experience in theatre, film, and television, Michael Douglas has balanced the roles of actor and producer since the 1960s, achieving the first of many cinematic triumphs with multi-Academy Award-winning One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975. Since then, he's continued to act and produce in a string of hit movies and TV shows. He won his second Oscar for his portrayal of villainous 80s yuppie Gordon Gekko in 1987's Wall Street. And that was just the beginning of another run of box office hits and critical acclaim that take us all the way up to his brilliant award-winning Netflix show, The Kominsky Method. We've prepared a short video celebrating Mr. Michael Douglas.
I need you to be the Ant-Man.
Acting is believing lies. That's all I'm doing. I'm a liar.
And the Golden Globe goes to Michael Douglas, The Kominsky Method.
Through the art of war, every battle is won before it's ever fought. Think about it.
It's really, really hard. I've become part of the Marvel. In terms of creating this believability when there's nothing there.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
And you have to keep reminding yourself, some people are good at it, some people get good at it, and it's probably the best exercise for committing yourself to believing in what you're doing.
Thank you for being my teacher.
Good job.
Let's dig in.
Yeah.
I'll ask the first question. Mr. Douglas, you describe yourself as an actor first and a producer second, but in your early career as an actor, you've said that you were painfully shy and you suffered the stage fright. So what helped you grew your confidence as an actor?
Well, I was fortunate very early on, Fatima, to get a television series called The Streets of San Francisco. And before that, when I started acting, and at those days, the movie cameras were enormous. They were very big. And the lenses were very, very big. And I always felt like I was in the dentist's office and the x-ray machines were coming down. And yes, I had a lot of stage fright when I was first started on the stage in theater and then starting in films. But I was fortunate enough to do this series. And the series was 26, the first season was 26-hour episodes, along with a 2-hour introductory. And my lead and my co-star and my mentor was Carl Malden, who was a wonderful actor, worked a lot with Marlon Brando many years ago, and was very supportive to me. And I think I was fortunate because just the reality of ending up, because we played for 4 years, and I did 104 hours of the series, 26 episodes like a year, that I ultimately got comfortable with the cameras. And I think that was really the one that got me over the top. And so there's nothing better than kind of getting up in front of the cameras. And now it's much simpler because of even our iPhones and all of that. So for all of those young actors out there who are sort of waiting for the opportunity for someone to make a movie of them and everything else, I'd suggest that you do monologues, little soliloquies, do little scenes together, and just get used to the camera and watch yourself. Look at yourself on the camera again, and you'll see angles to start finding out situations, not to get more self-conscious, but to get less, and also to know what works and what doesn't work. So for a very expensive art form that movie making is, or television, there is opportunities now for young talent to make their own films and to perform. It may be for a small audience, but nevertheless, they learn a lot.
Yes, filmmaking's been democratized immensely, hasn't it? Now, but just to stay back in those early days of Streets of San Francisco, it was just prior to that series beginning that you began Big Stick Productions, which I believe was your first production company. What motivated you to set up a production company at that time?
Well, it came about with my love for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's people may know it now. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was a book written by Ken Kesey, who my father, in the height of his career and his production company, had acquired this book in what's called galley form before it's been published, in which he went and did it as a play. He did it as a play on Broadway. The play was not successful, but he had hoped the play would work out and then he would make a film out of it. Meanwhile, a couple of years later, I'm in the University of California at Santa Barbara, a very nice place to be, mind you, if you want to go to university, to college. And I was taking a class in 20th century American literature, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was now a novel in that class. It was a fantastic book. And I remember being really, really enthralled with it. In any event, I finished the college. I began my career as an actor. I was fortunate, began to do a couple of movies that did not work out well. And my father, who had been trying to get the movie made of Cuckoo's Nest for years, couldn't do it. And he was going to sell the property. And I said, Dad, I don't sell it. Look, let me try to get this film set up. And I'm sure my father, being the good father that he was, said, okay, so I'll give you a chance. And look, I'll try to, I'll get you to be the actor in it and the production company and that. And he gave me the rights to run with the property for a while. And I spent probably about 4 years until I was able to reach out to my partner, Saul Zaentz, who went on to win Academy Awards for Amadeus and English Patient, as well as Cuckoo's Nest. And we made the film. The difficulty was that by the time I got it together, Dad was a little older. He was a little older, wasn't really quite right for the part. but I think we used to joke about it, but he kind of held it against me for a lot of years. I used to remind him, wait a minute, Dad, because I gave him half of my interest as a producer. And I said, you made more money on that picture than any movie you ever made. And he was proud to see when the picture turned out. We won the Academy Awards as well. So that was why I created Big Stick Productions, because I never anticipated being a producer. And it was an incredible different direction that my career took very, very early on. And I left the television series after 4 years. I had a 5-year contract. I left after 4 years to go produce One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And people always ask me today under contracts, I'll be eternally grateful to Carl Malden and Quinn Martin, who was the famous television producer at that time, for letting me out of my contract, knowing how passionate I was for Cuckoo's Nest. Because I did have 1 more year, and they asked me to come back for a 2-hour movie for television to sort of introduce the character who was going to replace me in the series. The Big Stick was sort of the beginning of my producing career.
And of course, that led into a hugely successful producing career with China Syndrome, Romancing the Stone, Flatliners, and many more. How do you balance producing and acting sometimes in the same movie?
Well, I know you spoke earlier about my career being more than 50 years, and I'm afraid to say that I was not a child actor. So I've been around for a while. It's a good question, Ben. It's gone through different kind of ramifications. Early on, I juggled both the producing and the acting. The producing and acting are antithesis. They're entirely different from each other. Acting, you are paid to be selfish. Acting, you're paid, and your role is to only have the tunnels on and think about what's in front of you, and that's all. And reacting to whatever is the situation that's in front of you. Producing requires a 360-degree vision, having a sense of the entire production of what's going on. So something has to give. And I was very fortunate early on, like Romancing the Stone, to have a leading lady like Kathleen Turner, who would put up with the amount of time that I had to spend dealing with the production, all the troubles, all the efforts. And it wasn't the most conducive to being an actor, because you're thinking about a lot of other stuff. So as my career continued, and unfortunately, as it became more kind of successful, and I had a bigger production company, and I was still acting, I realized that I wasn't having fun. And I realized that when I finished an acting role, I would come back to my company and I'd have a pile of scripts about this high of mediocre work, all that needed for rewrites and work. And when you finish a picture and you're tired and exhausted, the last thing you wanted to do was to have to face a whole bunch of rewrites. And so gradually, as I moved along, I either only produced or I only enjoyed acting. And I'm at a point now where I'm developing minimal amount of stuff and just enjoying being selfish, enjoying just the joy of being an actor, and let somebody else worry about all the problems.
You've touched on the great actor Carl Malden being your mentor. Here we at the Doha Film Institute in Qatar, we rely a lot on mentors from all over the world to help our filmmakers achieve the goals that they want in their filmmaking careers. How important is it to find a good mentor, and what did you learn from him?
It's, if you're fortunate enough to find someone, and a lot of times people don't even realize that they have found that person, it's fantastic. Carl was an inherent teacher. He enjoyed teaching. But in those years, and for instance, the example of Streets of San Francisco, where Carl was the principal lead, and he was the detective, and I was what's called like the second banana. In those days, and with the lenses, I would always be like 1 or 2 steps behind him in soft focus, because when they hold a 2-shot, the focal lens couldn't handle the differences. So that was a common thing. So you were always in like soft focus. And Carl was one of the first people who said, look, come on up, come here, come on, go ahead, get up. So he encouraged. Also his work ethic, which was really, really incredible, because actors can tend to be lazy. Acting is a very, very delicate area where you can get away with a lot just by, being in front of the camera, not necessarily digging in. So we always had, when we started a new episode, which was 7 shooting days, he always wanted the script for the next episode to have that. So whenever we had a break between camera angles or this or that, and I would sort of head to my trailer, he'd go, up, come on. And we would take our scripts and we would rehearse the next week's script. And as a result, the writers used to hate us, because by rehearsing, we were able to really pick up our cues. And so we really knew our lines. And so the writers, our scripts generally had to be like 8 or 9 pages longer than normal scripts, just simply because we picked up the pace. And so I basically learned my work ethic from Carl. And the television series was on location in San Francisco. So 26-hour episodes is 8.5 months. Because we were on location, we worked 6 days a week. And every day was a 14-hour day. So it's like exercising a muscle. My work ethic was so strong that ever since that series, a lot of people didn't want to be around me in terms of how hard I was willing to work.
And looking back at that time, what would you define as the difference between television acting at that time in the mid-70s and cinematic acting?
Well, the biggest difference was probably the quality of material, to some extent. Secondly, the amount of time that you had to do something. We made a 52-minute movie. It's a 1-hour television show, 52 minutes, because it had 8 minutes for commercials. We made that in 7 shooting days, 7 days of filming. An average feature film of an hour and 45 minutes could be 50 filming days. So there was a much larger amount of time to create more quality. Having said that, what I really appreciate about television, and to this day in most other countries, is the quality of television with the amount of time they have versus the amount of time and money that feature films have don't equalize that much. The television does a really, really good job. The second issue, of course, was snobbery. And as I found out when I left the series and was an Academy Award-winning producer and had an Oscar as a producer and was developing pictures, there were a lot of studios that would not hire me as an actor, because the saying was, well, if you're in television, I can see you for free. But if you're in movies, I have to pay. I have to go buy a ticket. And so that was the snob appeal. And there were movies that I produced, like a movie called Starman, that Jeff Bridges did the role, and he got nominated for an Academy Award, which I produced. But I was not, the studio did not approve of me as an actor. So it was a weird dichotomy. One of the beautiful things about the streaming situation that we have now is streaming has allowed those 2 tracks, those 2 separate tracks, television being on one and movies that never come together, to come together. So you're having a lot of feature film producers, writers who can go into streaming and can be a producer as well as the writer. and you have feature film actors working with people out of television. So streaming has been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to bring us all closer together.
And we certainly want to explore that a little bit later, but just staying for a moment in the 80s, was Romancing the Stone the breakthrough you were looking for, or did that come with Wall Street?
That came with Wall Street.
Right.
But Romancing the Stone was just another, in that time I was producing it. It was a very difficult picture. I was so blessed to have Kathleen Turner. I mean, when you read in the script, there's always that joke when you read in the script, Rome burns, you know, and it's two words which could mean, 2 weeks of production shooting. And in our film, it was the mudslide, and so it sounded like a clever, cute situation. But it was a very difficult shoot production-wise in Mexico. And I'm very proud how the movie turned out in terms of its tone, because you did not see any of the hard work or effort going into it. It looked, relatively effortless. But Romancing the Stone was sort of part of my early producing successes with the China Syndrome and others. Wall Street and the acknowledgement of winning an Oscar as an actor was a big breakthrough for me because of my father. I've grown up, for many of you who may or may not know, my father, Kirk Douglas, was a major movie star in the late 40s and the 50s and the early 60s. And winning an Oscar allowed me to sort of step out of his shadow, really for the first time as an actor, and feel like I had developed my own style. So many times earlier in my career, when I went in for casting agents or this or that, they go, "Oh, you remind me just like your father. That's just like your father." So, well, half my genes are my father. When in fact, as an actor, you're trying to create your own identity, and being just like your father is not what you wanted to hear.
I read in an interview that you attribute your breakthrough to the change of tone of voice in Wall Street, and how you changed it to become deeper, and how you were able to control that aspect of your acting.
That's true. It was a very wordy part. There was a lot of dialogue, and I worked a lot with a voice teacher on that film. I had some long speeches. I learned about breath control and how to position and get your voice. A lot of actors think sometimes with film, because with the microphones and you can get so quiet, you can talk so little, you can like this, and the microphone, they turn it up louder and louder to get. But you have to be careful, because with getting vocally smaller, you can get smaller. And so, yes, it's a screen and it picks up everything as opposed to the stage. But it's something that I do try to talk to students about vocally. It's something that's been lost in the last couple of generations, the last couple of decades anyway. That and diction, sometimes understanding. We're always very impressed with the English actors that can come over to the States and speak with a perfect American accent, and you understand them quite clearly.
And what was Oliver Stone a large part of that intense performance? I mean, I heard that he was quite intense himself on that film.
Well, every film, first of all, I did take it personally. And I think I've told the story, but maybe your audience would hear it, but I was about the second week of filming, and and it was going, I thought, pretty good. And Oliver came into my trailer and said, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You doing drugs?" I said, "No, I'm not doing drugs." Oh, he says, "Because you look like you never acted before in your life." And Gordon Gekko shrunk into this little man. I normally, I don't like to go look at the film, the dailies. I don't go because all I see is the bad stuff, which is never going to be in the film. I don't really see the edited stuff. But I said, well, I guess I better go look. He said, yeah, you better go. And so I went down to the editing room and I looked at a couple of scenes. One was the seduction scene with Charlie Sheen and in the back of the limousine. The other one in the 21 Club. And I thought it was pretty good. And I came back to him and I said, all right, I thought it was okay. He said, yeah, it is, isn't it? I said, what are you doing? And he wanted a little more nastiness from Gordon Gekko. He wanted a little more nastiness. And he was willing to put himself out there next to the camera and have me, really not very happy with him and really angry. But saying that, you look at Oliver Stone's career, going all the way back to El Salvador with Jimmy Woods, Born on the 4th of July with Tom Cruise, JFK with Kevin Costner. All these actors are given the best performances of their careers. And I won an Oscar with him too. So there's something to be said for challenging and testing actors. So many times the director is sort of like the patriarch, the father figure, who's, I'll protect you insecure actors. Oliver Stone, was a Vietnam vet, and he thought much more about whether I could trust you in the trench with me. Would you be somebody that I could actually trust? Not that I can take care of you, but you'll back me up, I'll back you up. And I will be eternally grateful for him giving me that opportunity. And he's a very, very talented writer-director.
Absolutely. I think we're going to go to some Q&As from our audience now, give them a chance to ask a few questions.
What an interesting discussion we have. So let's hear it first from Noor Al Nasser.
One of our up-and-coming filmmakers. Hi, Noor.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Mr. Douglas. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. I'm very excited to speak to you. I have a question. I was wondering, as someone who worked with so many different actors over the years, in your opinion, what makes a really good actor-director relationship?
Each one is unique. Some situations there are actors who all they look for is to hear from the response from the director and to be molded and wanting a lot of direction and help. I've always been out of the school that a director has so much to do that he's already cast you and you got the part. And unless there's a big problem, I leave him alone and let the director do all the other things he has to deal with. That's not to say he won't focus on the directors, on the actors too. But I think it really depends on the situation. I think sometimes actors have to be strong and courageous, and you can't take these relationships personally. So it's very hard for me to say to you exactly, other than hopefully you build up a mutual respect, and just be careful if either the actor or the director is abusive, not to take it personally and take a deep breath and concentrate on your work rather than being hurt.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noor. And for the second question for tonight, it's from Abdul Rahman, one of our Badr jurors. I love your work so much, and as a person with such time extended career, I would like to ask, how can one stay relevant in today's media?
I guess you're speaking about as far as in directing. I think you have to, you just have to trust your heart. You have to trust yourself. Every movie that pretty much that I made or produced, I did for myself. I mean, it was something that I was really liked and interested. I was not aware, didn't think too much of what the tone or where the market was going. Never trying to second guess the market. It should go without saying right now that everything rests with the material. Everything rests with that foundation, with that blueprint. And unless you have a really strong foundation, you're going to be on a false footing. You may solve a few problems, but unless you have, and I'm an old-fashioned 3-act, a beginning, first act, second act, and third act kind of person, you're really juggling. Then you have to be sure with what you're doing. So I follow, a lot of my films. The China Syndrome. We had the 3 Mile Island accident happen 10 days after the movie was opened, and Wall Street dealing with all the corruption, the issues there. I like issue films and tonally, but I don't think you can think that way. I think you have to think of what's a really good story and make sure that it's structurally sound.
Great question
there.
Let's hear it from Khalifa Al-Mari.
Another Qatari filmmaker.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hi, Khalifa. Yes.
Hi, nice to meet you, Mr. Douglas. I'm a huge fan, and I'm honored to have the chance to meet you. I have a short film in competition this year. It's a coming of age story about a kid and his camel. I'll be more than happy to share it with you. To get to my question, actually, my question is, as a director, I tried a couple of methods of dealing with actors, and what do you think is the best method dealing with an actor? And to add to that question is, what if the actor was more established than the director? How does that relationship work between the two of them?
Well, I think I think every situation is different. I mean, as a director, you have to evaluate whether your actor is nervous, or if your actor doesn't understand the scene. So I guess it's really a question or is he or she bullying? What the situation is. It varies all the time. So it's difficult for me to say unless I knew specifically what the problem might be. Normally I have compassion for directors because it's very lonely. It's very lonely being a director. Everything ends with you. You're probably one of the first ones involved. You're going to be probably the last person to leave the editing room. So I support, even though on many of my movies I've had a final cut, I'll give my final cut to a director because I support them. Saying that, they're human and make mistakes too. But I think you have to just, if you're a good listener, that really helps. I know too many directors sometimes have preconceived ideas. Every director should have an idea how they want to do a scene and do not have the ability to listen to an actor who may have brought something else. So before the actors even finish doing their interpretation, the director's already trying to change them off into another direction. And that I think you have to be sensitive about. as far as dealing with actors who may be of a higher repute than you, I don't think you have to treat everybody the same. I mean, if an actor is attempting to, circumspect you, to try to go around you or try to impress you with his wisdom, I just think you have to take a deep breath and be patient, because as we're seeing more and more in our industry, there's a lot of, I think it all started with a young man named Steven Spielberg, who's, I can't remember how old he was when he did Jaws, and a lot of others, but there's a lot of young talent out there, and anybody who's smart, any actor who's smart, would welcome somebody who's talented.
Great advice there. Now let's hear it from Hamad Hamoudi.
Throughout your illustrious and successful career, has there been any fear throughout your career? And if yes, how do you overcome it?
That's a very good question. Certainly, there was a lot of fear early on when I spoke about having stage fright and just nerves, just overcome with nerves to the point that you couldn't focus. And that was one of the ways where I eventually solved it, was working on my concentration better, and try to really concentrate on the part rather than movies are tough. There's people standing all around, there's a camera, it's very easy to be distracted, so your concentration has to be good. And I think the best way to overcome it is to work on your concentration. But as far as it's well known, later in my career, I had a stage 4 cancer bout, when I had a serious round of chemotherapy and radiation for stage 4 cancer. Not sure if it was my tongue too, so not sure if I'd ever act again, not sure if I'd ever speak again, and then not sure with my losing my jaw, and that was a tough time. That was a tough time. My phone. Hang on. I'm so sorry. I'm on my iPad.
It's okay. You're back.
I'm back. Yeah, no, I'm on my iPad. Somebody called. Anyway, that was a time where I was never sure I was going to work again. And then after I got that finished, my procedure, I had this wonderful script called Behind the Candelabra, about this flamboyant performer named Liberace, with Steven Soderbergh and Matt Damon. And I was so excited about it. And they came and they said, I'm so sorry, Steven said, I've got one more picture I've got to do, so I'm going to have to postpone this. And Matt Damon said, too, I've got this other project, we'll do this next year. And I thought, well, that's it. That's the beginning of the end. What I didn't know was, because I just was so excited to have this part, was that I was a fraction of myself. I was gaunt, and they knew that I needed a year to get back to my size or my weight and all of that. But rather than make me feel bad, they took it on themselves. So those are the kind of people that you want to work with. And then you have to look out there. There are people who intimidate, who like to do that, either as director or actor. So you have to just hang on to yourself and recognize who you're dealing with, who are those that you can be open to, that you have no problem being open to, and those that you can't. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
And now for our last question, Which one is harder, being a producer or being a director? And how do you see the relationship between these two on set? This question is from Fatima.
A good question. Again, each situation is different. I think ultimately, producing is much more about before the cameras roll. Producing is much more, usually producers are the ones involved with finding the material, developing the material, finding the financing or the studio to make the picture. All of this is tedious and can take years of time. And then having a vision. And then the producer is the one who hires the director. And then once that baton is passed on to the director, then it's the director's responsibility, hopefully listening to and working with his producer. But then it's the director who's putting in those hours. It's, as I said before, it's the director who's the first one there in the morning and the last one to leave. And he's all the way through pre-production. So I don't think of it as more difficult, but the dream you hope for is that ensemble. You pray for that fact where the director and the producer complement each other. But every situation is different. But I think a good producer has to be a sounding board for the director. As I said before, directing is lonely. And sometimes directors, especially when they're insecure, get even more omnipotent. They get even more larger and they're actually very scared and very nervous. And you as a producer have to be able to be a mirror to that director and to talk things through. That's an important relationship to have.
Is one point I would like to touch on very quickly is that after 40, 50 years in your career, you're still doing new things and you're going out of your comfort and you said you're learning new things. So that's, I think, a great example for all our young filmmakers and actors and anyone who wants to go into this industry, that we never stop learning.
No, the Kaminsky method was really was an opportunity for me to learn about comedy. I'm amazed about comedy. Some people are so good at it with their timing, their delivery. Chuck Lorre, who has all these successful shows, Dahmer and Grey, 2.5 Men, The Big Bang, there are all these things. And he wrote the show by himself, not with a stable of writers. The writing was so good. And he's such a good comic writer. And I was so fortunate to work with some of these really good comic actors and learn much more about comedy and the rhythms and all of that. And then doing these Ant-Man pictures. I had never done one of these green screen special effects movies in my career. All my movies are sort of character driven, contemporary. And so the chance to really work with these green screens when there's nothing there. And I had a deep appreciation for these actors realizing how good they are at true make-believe, So these are both things that have happened to me in this last decade. And what keeps me excited and keeps me enjoying what I'm doing.
And as you told us, you're now in London filming the next Ant-Man. So we're all very excited and waiting for that one.
Yeah, you're going to have to wait a long time. It's not coming out till February 2023.
Okay, fantastic. So lastly, I want to introduce to you one of our jurors. Her name is Fatma, and she a juror at Ajyal Film Festival and also a film student. She has a special message for you.
All right, so greetings to everyone who are tuned in this evening. My name is Fatima Amnuraniza Dayola, and I'm part of this year's Ajyal Film Festival's Battle Jurors. I'd like to share a few things with everyone. Today, most of us consume films to entertain ourselves, and most of the time we learn from it. We immerse ourselves in contents that suit our needs and wants, and filmmakers
have provided just that. As a film student myself, I have been inspired by films to take on this path to inspire many other people, especially the youth. Throughout the years, some, if not most of us, may have watched our beloved Michael Douglas in prolific films. So to top this all off, it gives me the greatest pleasure to present this honorary Ajyal Award to our beloved Mr. Douglas. May you inspire the generations to come as you have done to mine.
Fatima, thank you so much. And I really look forward to being able to join you at the Ajyal Festival sometime in the future, and hope this year is a great success. And Ben, thank you very much. Fatima,
thank you so much.
Appreciate you being there. It's been a treat. Okay.
It's been absolutely fascinating. I'm sure everyone in the audience has been.
I'm sure. Thank you for joining us. We will be sending you your honorary award. Hopefully you'll receive it soon. And as you said, next time you will be with us in Doha and we can celebrate you all here together. And thank you to everyone who joined us tonight for this amazing session. And please tune in to other sessions at the Ajyal Film Festival. Thank you and good night.
Good night. Thank you, Michael.
Good night.